We now come to the do's and don'ts. The third area, do's and don'ts. As I say there, do master the techniques of consolidations. There are lots of techniques around. Lots of people, lecturers, still do T accounts because they probably studied that themselves years ago, as I did as a student many, many years ago. But obviously one moves with the times. As the questions get more and more detailed, a bit longer from the days when I was a student, you've got to use lighter techniques that you can execute quickly. So over the years, I've developed a technique which I want to share with you, where you can get these answers done very quickly and very clearly with clear steps. So do master these accounting techniques. These are, at this level, as I say, fairly straightforward, but you must understand the reasons why you're making the various adjustments and the thinking behind the structured workings. So that's quite important. What else? The other one, next, do understand how to apply your knowledge. Do study the class notes. I've written the class notes myself. The interactive LSBF director said to me, Francis, you're an experienced lecturer. Have the freedom, the creativity to write whatever you like. Put as much passion and feeling that you have for the subject into your class notes. And I thought this was marvelous. So I had a free rein to be as creative as possible. So if you look at my notes in due course, you'll see a few cartoons and illustrations and arrows and brackets and columns, and rather than just words, just to make it a bit more interesting, show you all my little techniques. So do please use my class notes in detail. Turn to the textbook, the interactive, the LSBF textbook, only for further explanation of the concepts. So try to use my techniques only as I demonstrate in my class notes. But if you need further explanation on the accounting standards, that's when you have a look at the textbook. But the textbook is very optional. It's useful from time to time, but my class notes with my video should be more than enough to get you a very comfortable pass, according to students who've been using them. So what else can I say? Another do master the formats. Let's highlight that for the income statement and the statement of financial position. Also occasionally examined is the statement of changes in equity, sometimes called a SOCI, and of course the statement of cash flows. So important here, the formats are extremely important. And of course the statement of cash flow, which is also based on a big format. You have 3 categories: operating, investing, financing, that kind of thing. And I'll show you some techniques whereby you work out the figures for inflows and outflows of cash. You slot them into the format, and really you're looking at 90% of the marks of that question, just like that. I guarantee you if you use my techniques. Use logic rather than bookkeeping techniques. What else? We also have another warning. Do practice exam questions, taking the standards very seriously, because that's 45% of the exam. It's a very time-pressured exam. You must know how to deal with time management. In other words, you've got to be ruthless with your time. 25 marks is the length of the first 3 questions. Each of them is 45 minutes long. So 25 marks means 45 minutes. Now, you have to be disciplined. You say to yourself, whatever time it is, 10:15, by 11 o'clock, I have to stop. I like consolidations, I'll do it first. By 11 o'clock, I've got to stop. There's no point going on for another 15 minutes. When you come to your 11 o'clock, the 45 minutes, as close to that as possible, full stop on your question paper, move on to the next question. It's one of the hardest disciplines to develop. And that's why we suggest students do our tests. We offer you tests online, etc. And if you can practice under exam conditions doing these tests, and indeed the exam kit, the revision kit, that would be wonderful. What else? I'll tell you more about the exam kit just now. The other area, so I looked at a few do's, now some don'ts. Don't attempt the questions in the exam revision kit, as I was saying, until the syllabus is done, as the questions are mixed. What I mean is this. In the first few videos, I'll show you how to do consolidations. Indeed, I'll be doing past exam questions with you, but I would have taken out topics that we had not yet covered. So, for example, if there's a topic like complications such as financial instruments in the middle of a consolidation question, I'll keep it to one side, do the question without that complication, but later, once I've done financial instruments, we'll revisit consolidations with these complications in them, like financial instruments. Now, that you can do only after the course has been completed. Now, financial reporting being such a large syllabus, the examiner cannot confine himself to individual topics for every sitting. In other words, he cannot have discrete whole topics or whole questions devoted to single topics. He has to mix them. Otherwise, it'll take years before he gets through this massive, massive syllabus, reputed to be one of the biggest in the whole of the ACCA. So do be careful. The reason why the syllabus is so big is obviously because every time there's a new accounting standard, it gets added and added and added to the syllabus. The only ones that we are spared are things like foreign currency and pensions. They are left for P2, corporate reporting, in 6 months, a year's time. But it is a very, very big syllabus, even at F7 level. There is time allocated to doing these mixed questions at the end of the course. Master the basic skills first. There is a saying going around with F7 that if you know the basics, you'll get 60%. Now, most of us know a few extra bits, so that's why you can get more than 60%. But if you're shaky on the basics, you'll find it hard to pass this paper. So you must know the basics. What else do we have? The next don't use anything but A4 sheets of paper so as to simulate exam conditions wherever possible. Now, in class, very often I do lots of face-to-face lecturing. I see students bringing into class last year's diary. Now, I almost burst out laughing when I see that, but I try to show respect to the student, and I don't do that. But inwardly, I'm saying this person is in big trouble already. Because if you use a tiny little sheet of paper, what shall I say? That's an A4 size. If many students use that sort of size, either a little exercise book or last year's diary with a few pages left. Some people even use a smaller sheet. And let me tell you that certain topics, let's say consolidated income statements, they have 6 columns of words and figures. How do you fit that in to anything other than an A4 sheet? The examiner gives you an A4 sheet, which is this sort of size, you see. And if you use anything smaller than that, you're creating problems for yourself. Because if you get used to a tiny little piece of paper, if the examiner gives you a normal A4 sheet, you'll feel like you're writing on the wall. And also the presentation to yourself in terms of understanding it becomes very, very small and difficult to follow when you're reviewing things after the lectures. So do be careful. Seems like a very basic thing to talk about, but I see so many people with these little exercise books, half the size of an A4 sheet. Others use diaries and things like that. Just don't do that. Be professional. You must have a pen, a ruler, proper A4 sheet. Try to simulate exam conditions. The exam situation is stressful enough without having a different size paper suddenly thrust upon you. Okay, so there you are. Don't. Don't try to pass without learning and understanding the principles and the standards, as I've been saying. Don't ignore the discussion parts of the paper, as these are around 33% of the paper. So some of the standards, 45 marks, will be written, and obviously that's what constitutes 33 marks. So a third of the paper is written, so 1 out of your 3 hours will be spent writing without numbers. 1 hour out of 3. And quite apart from that, where do you get your ideas from? From 45% of your effort being devoted to standards, because 45% of the exam is on standards. You'll find that 45% of my videos, time allocation-wise, are on standards, certainly if you include revision. So there you are, a few do's and don'ts. One last one, don't give up. Don't give up. Fight. Never, never, never give up. This subject is not impossible. It requires time and effort, but if you put the hours in, you will give yourself every chance of passing. Something like 27,000 students, I understand, have passed with me, so my bosses tell me. So there's no reason why you should not. As I stand here today, the results are about to come out, and I've got every confidence my students will pass, provided they've attended the lectures and done a bit of homework. That's something I can't control. I just hope they do, and they are conscientious. But don't give up. It's very, very easy to pass. So how do you pass this paper? Be good on those 4 things: consolidations, published, cash flows, ratios. 4 basic techniques. What else is important? Standards. Because in the middle of all that, there'll be 45 marks devoted to standards. And of course, right at the end of the paper, there are 2 questions on standards, one for 15 marks, one for 10. So that's the way to pass this paper. So a few do's and don'ts. Thank you.